say?
So we'll jump into today's conversation about service blueprints. And some of you may be familiar with them, but if you're not, we're here to share our perspectives and get your questions, give you answers. So, first off, this conversation is coming out of the desire to deliver value that goes beyond a customer journey
Yep.
or a journey map. So most of us are familiar with journey maps. They provide that view of the stages of engagement that your customer has with your company. They help you to illustrate the needs of your customer at each of those stages or touch points and the emotion that's attached to those different
Yep.
stages. That's helpful in some regards, especially for marketing and that sort of thing. But when you really think about the rubber meeting the road in terms of your product offerings, your services, your front office and back office, service blueprints bring so much more value to a situation because they're able to uncover bottlenecks, redundancies, pain points that
Players.
players
Yep.
involved, all those things that customer journey maps can't necessarily illustrate.
Yes. Yeah, so they're like really rich view of things, right? They're a bit more work, to do a blueprint, but yeah, and the journey maps can feed into that. I think a lot of times
Mhm.
our journey maps will really focus on the customer, maybe some, some of the front stage people within the your company like support, and it really focuses on that customer and their use of your product or service. I mean, generally speaking, that's all going to end up in a blueprint, really. But there are all these invisible backstage people and things and assets going on that sometimes a journey map, because you are so honed in on your product, your service, your customers' interaction with that you miss all these other things that are really impacting that journey. And that we've been talking about storytelling, right? Storytelling, it really feeds in. All of it kind of feeds in together, if that makes sense. You just
Yeah.
take that deep dive.
Yeah. Think about a live production. What you get as the audience in that engagement, that's the front office. But all the like meat behind delivering that experience happens backstage. And
Yes.
so when you think about, and I like the fact that you touched or you mentioned the touch points because journey maps give you those touch point emotions and feelings and that sort of thing. But your service blueprint is going to take it a level deeper to not only articulate what's in that journey map, but then what's happening behind the curtain.
Yes.
What are your administrative teams or your systems configurators or those people that don't interface? Think about your accounting team or those folks that don't interact with the customer, but they help to deliver that front office experience. You've got to understand those pieces because, again, when we go back to systems thinking,
Yep.
it's an entire ecosystem.
Uh, yep. It is, right? And it all impacts what that customer experiences, how
Mhm.
your services are consumed, and experienced by your users. So,
Yeah, and you touched on it. When you're doing the work to capture the details of a customer journey map, the service blueprint to some extent is the same activities, the same sort of engagement.
mhm,
However, you're just taking your level of inquiry a little deeper.
yep,
You're assessing or capturing and observing things with more detail.
yep,
So if you're already spending the time in the market capturing the details for your customer journey map, why not, and you've done all that heavy lifting of recruitment and getting teams involved in carving out time to do that work, why not spend that time
mhm,
effectively getting as much as you can while you're out there?
right. and uncover and uncover. I think to me that's what those blueprints do. They identify to help you. Well, I mean, one of many things help you identify those gaps and where
Mhm.
you need to chase down more information.
Mhm.
I think that's why they can be harder work. You don't know what you don't know. You have a lot of things already to get that service blueprint started, through the research activities we do. A lot of people are like, well, how do you collect data for, how's it different from journey mapping? Well, really, in a way, it's not, right? You're observing things, you're interviewing people, you're watching them interact with your service or product, and then I think the big thing is you start focusing more on what are those backstage things, what are those invisible pieces, that we tend not to focus on. I think you make a more deliberate effort to
Mhm.
listen and observe and then go, hey, something else is going on here that's, not so conspicuous, in that journey.
Yeah, and it helps you to string along a cohesive experience like a journey. However, you're able to see from a back office perspective more of the mechanics around those components, those systems and tools, and where does that data need to. A few weeks ago, we talked about inputs, actions, and outputs.
Yes.
So at each of those stages, you're capturing the back office input, actions, and outputs, and who are the actors or the tools or systems in use. And you're now able to understand once those outputs are created, where is the handoff and where do they go next?
Yeah.
So that as you look at the data transfer, whether this is a product or a service, as you look at that information move through that journey, you're also looking at that front office experience, which is really what your customer experiences with
Yes.
your company or your product. And so it's really important to have that twofold, two side of the coin view to ensure that you can make sure that not only are you delivering the best in terms of your human interaction and customer service and experience, but also on the back end, are you using your systems and processes and people
And
as
people.
effectively as you can?
Right. And even if they're not your people, they can be backstage, and so you might not have control over certain things. Go back to, retail, shipping, right? They're kind of, back there, very important when things go wrong and UPS or the post office has an issue. How
Yeah.
do you handle that? You might not have control, but be aware that that's one of those pieces in the puzzle. So I do think it identifies gaps and why you might not be able to control all actors. You can look at solution. It just provides a lot of opportunity for innovation and thinking a little bit outside the box, because we've been on projects where it wasn't the company, it wasn't their service, it wasn't their product, although everyone thought it was. Why aren't people using this device? We must be doing something wrong. Dig in a little bit, and there were all these other processes and actors that weren't obvious or evident just from that kind of journey map. When you just took a look at journey map, and they were having a huge impact, and there were reasons they were having a huge impact upstream. If we hadn't, taken the time to really dig in, because our objective was to come up with, blueprint, service blueprint. I don't think that would have really ever been obvious,
Mhm.
how impactful it was. Like, hey, it's not the end user that's having a problem with that device. It's someone else involved. And so think of a medical device. Um, how many you have a surgeon, right? But you also have all these other people, primary care, nurses involved. Well, when you're doing a journey map of the device, you're looking at the potentially patient, but a lot of times the surgeon or the primary doctor. Well, what if, the nurses don't know how, or the primary care physician doesn't know how to work with, or it causes them a lot of churn, this medical device.
Mhm.
Be careful, but they're going to not be referring people, for that because
Mhm.
it causes them a headache. Things like that. Same thing with retail. I think retail is a great example of,
Mhm.
there are all kinds of things happening backstage. There are all kinds of physical assets, that impact that full journey.
Mhm.
You need to be able to see the point of those interactions. Who's front stage, who or what is backstage, what are some of the tangible assets that are being used or
Mhm.
employed as part of that journey, and take a close look at what those are, and then what are the pain points
Mhm.
between those different front stage, backstage, actors. That kind of thing is something those service blueprints can uncover and help people to talk about it too. So I think they're
Mhm.
great for internal use, almost as good for internal use as thinking of product or service development, because you have lots of teams. It gets everyone on the same page of what that process is and where it should be, right? So
Mhm.
start understanding their relationships and their impacts and where that's occurring. That's what a
Mhm.
blueprint can give you.
Yes, and in that example, you think about you have a role or your customer has a role to use your various equipment,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
they're not the direct buyer of your equipment.
Yep.
Someone else upstream influences that buying decision, and that buying decision might be based on various factors, and you can't do your job without that equipment, and or your customer can't do their job without that equipment.
Mhm.
You want to think about the understanding that's necessary, not only for the person who's consuming and utilizing your product, but you've got to think about those people who are in the middle that influence the buying process, the distribution, the
Yes.
configuration, and that sort of thing, because there are not only points of friction that may exist, there's also awareness, there's
Yep.
also motivation, there's also, your customer service experience and what that might mean in terms of who they interface with, but what is happening on the back end.
Yep.
It was just on the news today. Customer service organizations have been given an even lower rating, and they're down there with the IRS in terms of people's experiences in working or interfacing with them. And so when you think about that, you want to map out that journey and figure out where are those points of influence where
Yes.
you can improve your customer service processes, and how much of it is related to the people on the front end versus how much of it is the back end.
Yes.
And where can you move the needle, move the levers in order to make things better? You can't capture those things without having a really clear picture of the entire ecosystem
Yes.
and everything involved. And the good thing about service blueprints is, at least in our experiences of delivering them, we've had that opportunity to make them something that is living and breathing, and that our clients are able to use them to not only focus on in the near term their roadmap activities, or what do they need to improve in terms of their documentation and marketing around that thing, but they're also able to update it over time. So it's a
Yes.
living, breathing representation or illustration of their service delivery and their product delivery. And now it becomes something that you can update at any time because of the robustness and all the detail that it includes.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I know on a lot of our calls, I harp on the fact that update it. Yeah, these are these are living document. You have to update this stuff. Technology change. So what might be working at one point in your blueprint, interactions or uh, processes, technologies may not in a year. I mean, these days it may not in 6 months. So yeah, you have to keep going. And when you identify the gaps, like, oh, we discovered a new backstage actor that's really having an influence that we didn't know about. Don't just leave it at that, right? That's your gap in research. Go dig, figure out what you need to figure out, what those pain points are, there. So it does. It just needs to continue. Unless your service or product is not going to continue, then these really don't need to sit and stay stale, which we've seen people do really good work and you walk in and it's like, oh, well, that's 8 years old or 3 years old, 4 years old. And it's like, no, you have to continually use that as a reference point and build it out. Yeah.
Exactly. And it gives you a nice holistic view of things that allow you to see where those intersection points for AI exist.
Yes.
Where can
Yeah.
AI improve things? Where can you make certain tasks more efficient or effective
Hmm.
by inserting AI into that entire service experience? So
Yep.
definitely an activity, an artifact of value that I recommend that organizations, especially those that deliver services and products
Yep.
or services and experiences, and that's very important to your organization. This is definitely a way to get everything kind of mapped out and in a place where everyone can see how they fit within that entire ecosystem within your organization as
Exactly.
well as your customer. So that is a wrap for today. You have any questions, shoot us an email at info@leangeeks. You have a topic of interest, any questions, we are here to answer. Otherwise, have an awesome day, and we'll see you next time.